So welcome, Anya, to your private Epic Leadership Wisdom Circle conversation.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here because I know we've had many rich conversations.
Yeah.
Before we enter the portal to go into our wisdom conversation, I just want to share with you this quote by Judith Glacier, who wrote a book called Conversational Intelligence. This really speaks to the why of conversations. To get to the next level of greatness depends on the quality of the culture, which depends on the quality of relationships, which depends on the quality of conversations.
Amen.
Yes. So, of course, joining us as we enter this portal, welcoming us on the other side, as it were, are African ancestors with their wisdom, because these are the interdimensional spirit beings, and they are here to let us know that they will be offering us their ancient assistance. These interdimensional spirit beings are from way throughout the galaxy. They have been around forever.
So they are not just earthbound or
Exactly. Yeah. But
lives. Yeah,
these interdimensional spirit beings are way beyond more ancient than humans.
right.
Yeah.
And more all-encompassing, not just human.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So wisdom from beyond the beyond.
Yep.
In addition, the Aboriginal ancestors are insistent about joining this and supporting these conversations because they bring the support of their sacred earth practices and their sacred dream time traditions.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So
What a crew. On.
exactly, yeah. And of course, the Aboriginal ancestral wisdom is very, in many ways, it's very earth based. And yet at the same time, their sacred dreamtime traditions uh, are where they fully connect with the whole of consciousness.
Right. We on this planet need both of these wisdom sources right now.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We need all the help we can get for real.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the company of these ancestors, ancient and earthly and beyond, I welcome you to this safe, sane, comfortable, and sacred space where our shared wisdom is intelligence delivered through our hearts. In this place, you can feel seen and heard, experience neutrality and non judgment, express your personal integrity and social warmth, all of which will re regulate your nervous system. And from that, truth and truth telling can
Mm-hmm.
be expressed. Curiosity and creative thinking is alive. Sense making will lead to coherent context so that ultimately what we can experience together are the possibilities of spacious certainty.
I love that.
Yeah. And, I really need to send a thank you out to Desiree Ottaway because I use this quote of hers all the time. We are saved by the way we nurture and are nurtured.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would say all of the above is exactly what we all need right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And hard to come by.
Yes. Yes.
It is very hard to come by.
Yes. Very hard to come by. In fact, let me bring that back up so everybody can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially through other humans because we're not always regulated or feeling seen or heard or safe or
Precisely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're just at the bare edges of recognizing that we have to nurture and each other and be nurtured by each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. So, in our Wisdom Circle conversation, Our conversation will be sparked by iconic or unfamiliar travel images so that you in particular can experience new ways of seeing, thinking, feeling, sensing, knowing, and responding to your specific inquiry. So it's really a journey into the waters of perception so that the light of insight can be revealed to you. And we've sort of distilled your question here as the distinction between belonging and interconnectedness and the deeper significance this distinction creates in high touch, high impact marketing. And since this is a question, I think that many folks who are in business but coming from a much more expanded perspective might really have.
Mm-hmm.
I think this mythical gateway into the unknown is an appropriate start.
Yes. Yeah, how do you market without marketing?
Exactly. What's a new way? Because we
Because
definitely
I have tried all the ways on and none of them fit. So
exactly, yeah,
all the known ways on, all the recommended ways on, and none of them fit.
yeah, yeah.
Never
So
have, but not particularly now. I can't even pretend they do.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So it's time to move into the unknown to find what is fully in alignment with us. So why don't you initially, before we look at what the cards, the stories, the cards kind of reveal to you, why don't we look at first the sort of your current reality, where you are now, what kind of brought you to this question? You know, anything meaningful about the origin story that you want to tell us, or the significant present context, and you know, any needs, wants, untold desires you want to share, concerns and considerations. So
Oh, wow. Okay. I would say where I am now is in the seemingly endless liminal space, the in between that has really lasted uh, or continues, has continued for about 9 years. I had a very successful small boutique one-on-one private referral only wealth reimagined business where I helped entrepreneurs design and create and manage and tend to their own personal and business resources. And it was perfect for me. You know, it was one-on-one. I didn't have to market. It was all referral. I had a whole referral source of lawyers and accountants and, you know, past clients, which many of which have aged out. And I was happy. You know, I was more than happy. I was deeply contented and grateful that I had created something uh, from my own past disastrous, you know, financial results. I had great opulence, but I didn't know how to manage, and a lot of what I did was from wounded places and driven wants, uh, and then when I lost my career for truth telling, you know, I filed bankruptcy. I went through the whole just financial disaster. And from that, I was able to you know, create something for myself. And then you know, looking at all my driven wants and all my drivers and all the cultural myths and all the things I bought in on, and then becoming true to myself, created my own kind of wealth reimagined. And I was very happy. But then I started hearing, and this is where I got in trouble. I started hearing from my guides, no, this has just been your wisdom well. You know, you're going to be disseminating this to broadly. And I went into my human mind for 9 years trying to figure out what was that supposed to, deciding, you know, the stories I told, what that was supposed to look like. And again, got in debt, spending a lot of money on masterminds, and they were all marketing and accountability, and it never fit for me. Like, how was I going to go from, I kept listening outside of myself and outside of my spirit guides for the strategy and you know, the marketing and the business model. And it just never fit. And I just finally had to say, okay, I cannot figure this out. This is, you know, I began to understand I wasn't going to be able to figure it out. And so I've say the last 3 or 4 years, I've been pretty surrendered to that, but little did I know it would continue. And I've just, I let go of a lot of private clients. I stopped looking for private clients, and it's dwindled down to the place where I don't know who I am anymore as a business. I don't know what I'm doing next. I mean, I know the body of work and it's rich and it's wonderful, but I don't know how to share it, whether I'm just supposed to write books and then die and let someone else teach it, or, like, what am I doing? But I'm pretty surrendered to it now. And I'm actually patient, which I was born without patience, but I'm actually feeling patient and trusting. Uh, and I'm pretty much totally surrendered. I've got myself into a nice place where, whatever my income is can support my basic needs. And I'm just waiting for instructions or waiting to recognize alignment or resonance and I really don't know. And I think I needed to get to that place where I literally don't know what I'm doing next in terms of, in my work, for my work. And thank God I still have some, clients that have been with me forever and I enjoy it, but I know it's not the next. It's the was, or maybe as well as, but it's not the next. And I don't know what the next is. So I think my needs and wants, untold desires, I think they've all been met. And that was part of the journey the last 9 years of really, this is what I teach. What are your essential needs? What are your truest human desires? What are your soulful longings? And I think I got to find that out by not knowing, what was next and having to really hone down to, well, okay, what are your essential needs and what are your truest human desires? And those have all been taken care of. So I'm in a good place. But I just needed the patience and the trust. And I'm there now. Um, my concerns and considerations, I think those have even been resolved. I've gone to all the fearful places like, oh my God, I'm so radical anyway. And now with this new regime, this sort of authoritarian movement and cruelty and fascism, should I be in hiding, with my radical approach to money and, you know, taxation by, for buying four billionaires. Um, and that's kind of been resolved because, yeah, if I was going to do it the way that internet marketing tells me, I have to be very visible and on stages and provocative and totally accessible. Yeah, that would scare me, but I'm not going to do that. I just don't know what I'm going to do. So I think yeah, so we come down to the question I'm here for is how will I know? What do I need to know about how am I disseminating this body of work that I know could be so helpful to so many people who are ready to benefit? And that was the other thing I had to learn the last 3 years. I did a lot of bait for me to realize that need does not equal readiness. And so I feel like I've been, 9 years is an awful long time, but I have been honed and I feel much wiser and much more clear and more boundaried and um, more secure and more safe. I know how to be safe within myself and within my relationships. Um, but yeah, the conversations you and I have, I feel so blessed, and I have two other people in my life, two other women in my life where I can speak on the levels that you and I speak. And I think if I didn't have you three in my life, I would just think I was a wackadoo, a complete, you know, not meant for this planet, literally. And I'm sure many other people feel that as well. But I mean, I feel like these conversations that you're offering to other people, they are so essential because a lot of us are waking up from the social programming and we're seeing it's insane. But what is true? How do we do business? How do we come into community? what does relationship look like for us without the social programming? What does it look like? And I think so I feel blessed because I can have those conversations, and you are one of them that we can just and we are going into even more frontiers lately with this marketing piece. Like, wait, what does it look like, for us without the belonging gene? Like, what does it look like? And we've always, shared that around the community. Like, community is really not my thing. And I never understood why. I'm beginning to understand. It's based on something different than what most people on this in this culture, define it as. So yeah, that's really where I'm at. And I am grateful. It hasn't been easy. And so I'm in a good place. I just don't know anything that I
Well,
thought I did.
I think you're right. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, there are more unknowns that we're confronted with now than we ever have before. And it's impacting every aspect of our lives and our businesses and our leadership. It's just to the extent that we feel very disoriented and very unseated, as it were. So, I mean, I just want to first of all thank you for being so candid and sharing, this really remarkable journey that you've been on, and it has led you, because it gives people hope, people who are on their own, aspects of these journeys. It gives them hope that they still can have aspirations, and those aspirations can inspire them even when they're not absolutely clear about how any of that's going to happen.
Exactly. And I thought, my first face plant, complete financial face plant, gave me the work that I was going to do. And I was very grateful for that. But then I kind of went through another one, and my dissemination plan wasn't coming into focus. And that one was different though. That's again, I had to let go of the way I had structured my original work because I wasn't letting go of it. Um, and yeah, now I'm really disoriented. And so I think if I look at the first face plant, financial face plant, and every other way, I lost my family, friends, everything, career. That was to prepare me for the first part of my legacy work, to do the wisdom well, as my guides tell me. You were doing the research, one-on-one, because that was easier for me to work one-on-one, to have boundaries one-on-one. Group was another whole story. But now this is, okay, now you have to let go again. And because I'd already been through it and knew there's life and abundance and love and luxury after face planning, now it's like, oh, I didn't freak out. I just went, oh God, look at this. All that stuff is up. What is credible? What is success? What is security? What is, I think we're all that's shifting for everybody. And so I just got on the shifting plates a little sooner.
Yeah, I think you really are kind of, ahead of the mainstream, because everything that you're experiencing, even the tentativeness of now, I mean, this is what so many people are experiencing for the first time.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
because you have been through some different aspects of it at such deep and kind of complete levels, complete meaning really that it's completed something for you, um, to allow you to rise up out of that. I mean, that's wisdom. It's utterly priceless. We just have to figure out how does that become a way forward for you, which is kind of what our
exactly.
piece here is in terms
And
of.
it's actually now a confidence, rather
Yes,
than um,
exactly.
there's a level of confidence that even looking at what's happening politically and economically and environmentally, It's like, yeah, that will come out of that. We will come out of this. I just know it. I mean, if I can come out of what I've come out of, not to mention my childhood, like I'm going to we'll come out of this.
Yeah,
And I do believe that I think that's an important thing for people to start to grapple with, that, evolution is messy. Transformation can be really, really messy, but it's always taking us to a higher order. And unfortunately, that requires some disruption and death and release. And then, and I do believe that. So I think that's my core belief that keeps me sane. And then I've had the experiences that gives me the confidence that I'm not crazy. That
exactly.
how it works, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's really true. This is one of the reasons that we are actually using my cards from the Epic Leadership Journeys Transformational Wisdom card deck. It's because there are messages in these images, which have been taken, as you know, in like 17 different countries on my
Mhm.
travels on the 6 continents. And this particular one, the ancient map, is really letting us know that we are going to actually have to source new ways to find our way forward.
Amen.
Yeah, yeah. The old stuff clearly is not working and it's not going to work.
No.
And so we're going to use the two cards that have come up around this notion of belonging and interconnectedness to really explore these questions. So we're going to just notice what the first card says to you and whatever stories it might reveal about belonging. And then we're going to notice what the second card says to you, and again, whatever stories it reveals about interconnectedness. And then we'll look at the relationship of these two cards and what that relationship between belonging and interconnectedness reveal about the sort of deeper difference that
Hmm.
they create in high touch and high impact marketing, which you and many people and myself, we're all engaged in high touch, high impact marketing.
Right.
So are you ready? Shall we
I am. And I just want to say your card, Audacious Navigation, has been with me for at least the last 3 years. I just, I print it out and I read it almost, at least weekly, if not daily, that it
Wow.
has been a blessing. So that's been a big part of it, of my journey too, is that, yeah, I'm just audaciously navigating. I can't, all the ways I thought I made stuff happen isn't working. Yeah. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And it may be helpful for people to know that audacious navigation card, that the epic leadership wisdom in that card is all about exploration and discovery. So it's not like you simply reach a final point. It's literally that you're exploring and discovering all along the way.
Yeah, constantly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say exactly that point. It doesn't say you get there. And I noticed that about year two. It was like, well, when am I going to get there? And I'm reading the card and I'm like, oh, it doesn't say I'm going to get there. Oh, no. And every year, that's the card I got.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So the exploration and discovery continues even here. All right. So let's take a look at belonging. And, this is the card that you pulled for belonging. So, what does this card say to you about belonging?
I used my pendulum and I went through the list, because I just wanted to be, I wanted my unseen supporters to draw the card because I trust them more than I trust my own mind sometimes, my mind sometimes. Um, it was perfect. I mean, it took my first, I thought, what? Oh, and then I read about it. And I just, there's so much in just the image. Forget about the definition. You want me to just go with the image
Sure.
first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I looked at the image and I'm like, oh God, the desert. And it's not a little desert, it's the Sahara Desert. Oh my God. Yeah. That's that's when I think of belonging, it has been a desert. And because for me, belonging for so long was looking outside, where do I fit in? And of course, I have like 4 planets in Pisces, so I just naturally can blend and bob and weave, but that's not necessarily true to who I am. So I could just fit in anywhere and then realize this is not this isn't right, and then there's the shame of leaving um and not understanding that that didn't make me wrong, so therefore I should make them wrong, and that kind of immature stuff, which early on, that's what I did. But I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, oh God, there's a guide. And so I thought, I've never had a human guide. I have never had a human guide that actually was a useful guide to me. Um, bar you and the two other friends I've talked about, that in conversation we're guiding each other, but I've never had a guide. And I thought, oh, the only guides I've ever had that really worked for me were my unseen supporters, but I didn't know them for a very long time until later on in life. But so I did have a guide, but it was not a human guide. They were never human guides. And then the animals, I'm like, yeah, they got me there. I mean, I learned how to love through my cats and dogs. I learned what unconditional love was. I learned what forgiveness was, and all of the good qualities of human love I learned through animals. Um, and just even the oddness of the camel. When I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, I always loved the mutts, or the special needs animals. Like, even it wasn't even the gorgeous thoroughbreds. It was always the sort of special needs, whether it was physical or emotional or health needs. I just loved animals like that. So it was kind of showing me that the journey for me has been about loving myself with all of my special needs and my unusualness and my oddness, and it was a desert of other humans. So belonging, it took me years to realize I had to belong to myself, and really understand that I belong to the universe, that I belong to nature, that I belong to the whole realm. I really did belong very well. I just didn't belong well with other humans. I didn't find that it wasn't satisfying to me, even when I could belong. It just wasn't what I saw the culture said about romantic relationships and families and religious groups and cliques and clubs, and it just never did it for me. And it would make me feel defective in a lot of ways. Or the story I told myself is somehow I was defective, and I was very much alone. So I don't know, when I got this card, it was like, oh, this is so perfect. And of course, when I read the essence of the epic leadership, it all made sense.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me about this image is, well, there are several things actually, but um, this is a relatively small group of people who seem to be engaged in, if we attach the belonging to the sort of to this the folks on the camel that seem to
Hmm.
belong, right? They belong with this guide and they belong on these camels, but it's a relatively small group, and yet at the same time, when you look at the sand, there's been a lot of traffic out there.
Right.
And so it makes me wonder, since we're looking at this through the lens of belonging, how many other people have been out in the desert struggling with belonging?
Yeah, exactly. That is a really good point. There's a lot of small little caravans that have been through here.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You know,
we're
the
not.
thing is, yeah, because when you don't belong, you assume that you're kind of all alone, as you said. But the
Right.
reality is that um, that assumption may simply isolate you from seeing that there are a whole bunch of other people who, for whatever reason, at whatever level, also don't feel like they belong.
I would say most of us.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I wouldn't generalize it, but I'd say just to leave that door open that there may be a
There's
lot
a lot.
more people
Yeah.
who don't quite feel like they belong. If especially if they sort of disconnect from sort of the sort of cultural norms, because to be out here in the desert on this camel, this is not a familiar cultural norm.
Exactly.
You know.
And this came up in a conversation we were having about community because it was like, I don't understand what community is because what we think of as community still has rules. It's more like tribes. And, there's this whole thing, well, the indigenous people knew how to have community. Well, no, they had hard ass rules and they had a leader, and I don't want that. Like, remember we were having a conversation about the confusion about even community. What I'm not interested in what I've seen as community. And so, yeah, because we're outside, because I'm outside of the social norms, none of those sort of normal communities, or even based on indigenous or religious, or they don't work for me. So you're right. I'm not alone. I'm just outside of the social norms. And
Yeah,
and there are other people traveling out here too.
exactly.
But I didn't feel like those people were really necessarily belonging to each other. They're in a line, they're on the animal, and they're being led. Like that was my impression of even the group. They maybe paid for the journey and the guide, but they weren't necessarily a family or um, I guess the thing they had in common was that they were wanting to go to the same place.
Yeah, and I'd say what that does is that asks us to expand our notion of belonging. That
Right.
because they belong to this caravan,
Yep.
they belong on those camels because they're not going to get to where they're going without them.
Right.
Along
And
with that
they,
guide,
they need to be tied up, hooked up, in a
exactly,
caravan.
and they belong with that guide because without him, they definitely aren't going to get to where they're going.
Yep.
So, because he is the only one who actually knows the desert.
Right.
So, yeah, so it may be that this notion of belonging, that maybe what we're being prompted to do is being prompted to expand the ways in which we can belong and do belong.
And the ways in which we can create a caravan for other people where they belong, but they're not necessarily, this gets back to the best of our differences. I want a community where that's what matters is the differences, not the sameness. And in our culture, it's all about same interests, same goals, same, except here there is one goal. They want to get through the desert
Yeah,
and
but
stay alive.
they're getting through the desert with their differences on the backs of those camels.
Exactly. But they have the same camel and the same guy, the same animal and the same guide, and they're tied up together. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that I don't know if you know this about camels, but the camels are not the same. These camels have
Right.
their own very specific
Well, I meant same
disposition.
species, but you're right. Yeah.
I mean, one can be sort of mellow and the other one can be actually quite nasty.
Oh, yeah. Some of them are, and some of them are comical as heck.
Yeah. And this is part of the reason that they're actually linked. The camels are linked one to the other, not just so the people won't wander off, but so the camels won't decide that they want to go their own way.
Yeah. So that's kind of the structure to keep
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
moving,
yeah.
keep people together, tethered based on not on their sameness, but on, keep them tethered because of their differences.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think that there is certainly there's a common value that connects them. Like you said, if it's nothing more than they want to get to a particular destination and the guide knows how to do that, right?
Yeah, and they
And you're
don't
in the
want to
desert,
die in
so
the desert
yeah,
getting
and
there.
that's it. You're in the desert, so best to get on this camel. So I think this notion of belonging, it may perhaps what's happening in terms of sort of the culture is that the aberrations in the culture are showing us that we have too narrowly defined the concept of belonging.
Yeah.
And that when we expand the concept, what we find is there's a place for us to define what belonging means for us as business people and the people we want to bring together to provide services for.
And there's not an avatar for them, a simple avatar.
No, 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 because like you said, the key piece is that the belonging that interests you and I is a belonging that engages new perspectives. I mean, it thrives on diversity and inclusion and connection that naturally flows in many ways from the differences or because of the differences.
And we each evolve and expand from the differences, from taking in the differences and going, oh, yes, I'm gonna tweak that perception. I'm gonna
Exactly. Yeah.
expand that perception. I'm gonna, I'm gonna let that one go altogether. I'm gonna, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't think of that. Oh, well, that's interesting. Oh, wow, I could incorporate that. Oh, wow, that would be helpful. Boom. And there's an enrichment that comes from all of that because it activates our creativity.
So in some sense, our next, marketing is the monumental adventure. It's the monumental adventure of a small crew that we take through the desert.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, to make it literal with the image, I get it. I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we will
Because,
guide in our own way through a specific a desert that we're familiar with.
yes.
That was a desert, and now we're familiar with it. We've been through it. We have tracked a trail, a
Yeah.
way through. It's one we've found worked for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. I mean, it's the benefit of your experiences, it's the benefit of my experiences because
Right.
the reality is we are all on an epic journey,
Yes.
whether we want to be or not.
Mhm. Yeah. And it just got more epic. It
Yeah. Yeah.
keeps getting
So,
more epic.
so we need I mean, the reason that we may never have been able to find our own quote unquote guide for an extended period of time is because we're the guides,
Right.
you know, and we had to go on this our own individual monumental adventure in order to discover what we could bring that would help others, you
Yeah,
know.
because the way you describe it here, it's an unforgiving landscape. No maps exist. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So so we had to travel through uncharted and unknown territory
Yeah. And
and
what's
become a
really
guide. Yeah.
exactly, and what's pivotal that I think people don't realize is camels, for example, carry their resources with them. They can actually exist for something like 6 days without drinking any water. Those humps
Yeah.
are where the water is stored. So that's number one is these animals are walking resources. And
Mm-hmm.
on that, on the backs of these camels, we are carrying also not just ourselves, but our internal
Resource.
resources.
Yeah.
So the size of the sort of group of how many belong can be fluid
Yeah.
in the sense that it can be small and or larger.
Yeah. I mean, you could string a bunch of camels together. It wouldn't
Yep.
matter how many, right? And from this image, it wouldn't really matter how many. It could be three.
Well, yeah, I think there's an optimal number. You
Is there?
wouldn't have a dozen camels strung together.
Okay.
Mhm. You know, you might have 6, you might have 8 maximum, I would think. I'm just remembering when I was out there riding on camels and saw
Yeah,
a
I'm
lot
sure
of the
there's a reason
caravan,
for it.
how many camels typically were strung together. And if you had as many as 12, you wouldn't have any more.
Yeah.
For one thing, I'm not sure that the camels would cooperate.
I was gonna say, I bet the camels would be like, hey, too far from the guides. They'll be pulling back and yeah.
Well, because they're literally tied to each other. And they, if you're at the end of a 12 camel line, camel 9 and 10 may decide, now, okay, I have enough of
Yeah.
this. I
I'm out
mean,
of here.
these camels, like I said, these camels are diverse. They have their own personalities. So it seems like, I mean, that's the thing that this card seems to be saying to us is think how vast the desert is. You may want to really uh, expand beyond your imagining the notion of belonging, what that can look like, and how that works for us as providers of services, and also how that looks for the people whom we serve.
Exactly. It goes both to both of us, the
Yes,
people we serve and the
yes. And that we may, quite frankly, we may want to start small,
hmm
because we may want to start with a small caravan because that becomes manageable because we too are guiding our caravans through a desert.
right.
So, well,
Wow, yeah. That's powerful.
yeah. Shall we take a look at interconnectedness?
Yes. So now this one I haven't read the definition or anything. I just wanted to go blind.
Yeah, good place to start.
Yeah, I just wanted to go freelance. Free
So
form.
freelance on. What do you see? What is this card saying to you?
Wow. Well, for me, you know, initially it was like it's not just about other humans again. There's nature, the plant people and the animal people and the whole world and stone people and yeah, it looks very random and tangled, but it's very powerful. It's again so diverse and so solidly interconnected. And there's no necessarily a formula or a pattern or a design even. That's I think what's so stunning to me. There's no design,
Mm-hmm.
there's no template, there's no strategy, there's no, oh, this is how I'm going to build an interconnectedness with my people. And that's a little unnerving, I'm noticing for me. But yeah,
Yeah, it does suggest that uh, interconnectedness is that it just exists.
yep,
That it exists in nature, that it exists on planet Earth, that it exists in the universe. This idea that we have that somehow we can dissolve diversity is,
yeah,
is an illusion
yeah.
because um, we're attempting to dissolve what is.
Or that we can design how it works, how diversity is interconnected to serve us. No, it just is. You just have to allow it.
Yeah, yeah.
And to see how strong it is.
Mm-hmm. And how present it is in everything, everywhere. The thing I'm always reminded of when I look at this is nature. Nature thrives because of its diversity.
Yep.
So,
Every part of it is interconnected and impacts the other. It's
yes,
just there's just so many stories about, when you remove the wolves from the parks, what happened, and when you bring them back, what happens, and that we don't understand that if you take something out of an ecology, it doesn't thrive.
right. And it's because fundamentally everything is included. If it's
Mhm.
here, it's included.
It's a value if it's here. We just
Yes,
don't,
yes,
we may not understand it, but
yes. But I mean, in the scheme of life, it's all freaking included, you know? So the absurdity that humans think somehow they can, disconnect from it. Well, yeah, you can do that, but at your own peril.
right. And it's at the diminishment of the whole.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
is this my marketing plan?
Well, I think yeah, the thing I'm hearing is that because one of the things you said earlier, I think is really pivotal. You talked about how your work deals with values that you have a way of tapping into for the client. What are the values? And in terms of my work, I'm tapping into not only the values, also the needs and the aspirations,
Hmm.
because those become the definers of who's ready.
Yeah.
Those initial conversations let us know which clients are actually ready and already are, if you will, sort of cognizant of some level of interconnectedness, with themselves and with others, because all that stuff comes out in conversation with the in the initial sort of discovery session with a client.
Hmm.
And so I think that um, what if our approach to marketing may need to be an approach that takes us back to having conversations.
Yeah, and see that's where I had no trouble enrolling and screening when I did private work. There was always a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I could make very clear uh, where they need to be at in order to be ready to pivot towards shifting rather than making excuses or, diagnosing their problems. You know, and so I assumed, oh, when I disseminate, it's a group thing and it's just going to have to be a clever landing page and I just freeze over that because what am I going to do in a landing page? It could be 5 pages long and I still won't know if somebody is ready. So yeah, I guess I really drank the Kool-Aid that it had to be no touch, sort of recruiting and marketing. And I can't do that with my work. I can't because I was thinking the other day, yeah, I have a lot of expertise, and that's where a lot of the innovative tending practices and tools come in. But I really am a walk alongside person. I have to be as vulnerable and authentic as possible to diffuse all the shame and the self-flogging everyone's going through because they're not where they think they should be. And I share my own screw ups and face plants. And I don't want to do that publicly to just anybody in my marketing content.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've really just made assumptions that it had to be all on a landing page and anybody could read it. And that just doesn't work for what I do and who I need them to know I am and how I'm walking with them. And yet I have expertise because I have walked this a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I don't want, that part of the I'm going to be authentic and vulnerable to be out in the public. That is not, that doesn't serve me.
Well, what if if we're looking at, again, this notion of diversity, what if we start expanding this notion of diversity, inclusion, and interconnectedness, even from through our marketing lens, as it were? And so what if it doesn't have to be either or?
Yeah.
If it can begin at a certain place, because like you said, well, how does this all come together? Well, a turtle emerged from the sea, a bird emerged from the air. I mean, they all started somewhere, right?
Right.
So what if we started with what we are exceptional at, which are having these initial conversations to bring people in, even even one-on-one, if that's where they want to be, and in bringing them in one-on-one to see at what point might they want to actually come and have be with other kindred spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the group naturally forms. And
Oh, wow. So that's the exact opposite of where I've been thinking I had to go. I had to go from one-on-one in those intimate conversations where I would just know and they would know. There was a resonance to this big marketing, big groups or a membership with all this information because I'm not really there's some information and that is something I do want to develop because instead of repeating myself over and over, there is some information I do teach, but that's not the transformation. That's just the tool and the understanding. So, wow, see, I'm getting all excited because I miss those conversations. It would be like opening a Christmas Day, opening presents, like, oh, this person might be exactly right. And then even if they weren't, I could help them go elsewhere until they are. I could give them what they do next. And it
yeah,
was,
in other words, and they could work with you for the time that they need. Because right now, if you think about the situation, the way in which, I mean, we have this holistic view of interconnectedness. Yet in this climate that we're in, people feel very disconnected,
yeah.
and they become nervous about diversity, and they become nervous about inclusion.
And it
Um,
was about groups now.
exactly. Yeah, why not
Wow.
start inviting them into a private space where they can be comfortable, and where at the point that it's apparent that it would be appropriate, can invite them into a small group or circle of kindred spirits who also have acquiesced.
Wow, Sylvia, that is a big aha because you're right. This is a time when people are actually reluctant to join groups because there's so much divisiveness and vitriol. If you're on the wrong side of any issue, it's vitriol time. Yeah, so maybe it isn't the time in the journey across the desert to think of large groups that I because it does feel like I'd be so out of control if it was a large group and that kind of infighting started happening. And how do you handle it? And
Yeah,
yeah,
it would be
maybe
counterproductive.
it's just not time for that. And
No.
it never was. Oh God. Yeah.
And inviting people into interconnectedness, the first thing that needs to happen, because a lot of people have lost their sense of who can I trust. So the first thing they
Yeah.
need to experience is their interconnectedness with you, with someone who can assist them,
Hmm.
and to feel that they can trust you. Because once they trust you, then if you say, well, would you like to try this? And it doesn't, you don't have to start out by saying this is happening and you need to join or not join. You can give them an opportunity to do kind of a test, to say, okay, let's get together and see how this could work. And then, gradually, because one of the things that this image seems to evoke is a kind of evolution of interconnectedness.
Oh yeah, this is definitely organically evolved.
Exactly.
This did not, like I said, you didn't do a strategy and piece it together. It just evolved.
Yes. So, what if our approach to high touch, high impact marketing? What if
Impact.
that's our approach? If our approach is,
Oh my God, my shoulders have dropped like 2 feet.
wow,
It's like I've just been made assumptions. Well, I drank the Kool-Aid of all the masterminds and all the marketing people I've listened to, that it had to be a big tech structure, and I had to, but I couldn't do that until I had a big following, and then I have to have a big following, which makes me wretch. I'm not interested in a big following.
Well, I mean, we've all, I think there have been many of us who struggle with this. I mean, I certainly struggle with it because it's also not my way. It's not my way to just gather a bunch of people whom I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. And yet at the same time, what I know from our previous conversations is that we are intrinsically linked to interconnectedness. That, you know, it's not like we have to tout diversity. We
No.
have enjoyed the benefits of diversity. We have enjoyed the benefits of inclusion, and we know how that works. We don't. There's no mystery around any of that for us.
And I think traveling has a lot to do with that.
Absolutely.
I mean, it just, you realize it just, oh my God, diversity is the bomb.
Thank you. The other thing this interconnected speaks to, and this whole notion of diversity and inclusion speak to, is that there is awesome creativity that emerges
Mm-hmm.
naturally from interconnectedness, diversity, and inclusion. I mean, the best of diversity and inclusion has its own resonance, as it were, with interconnectedness in a way that just yields creativity that is it's awe-inspiring, it's gobsmacking, it's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
My dissemination. I had to figure out, like I had to design this thing here, this image, this artwork ahead of time, and then make it happen
Yeah,
rather than allow it to just evolve.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's my pattern, that my conditioning my training or my um, cultural conditioning, that, yeah, everything, you have to have it all laid out ahead of time. That's the professional way. And it must be strategic. And if it's strategic, you need to anticipate what it's going to look like. So you have to have the systems in place oh my God.
Well, I mean, that's the Western business culture.
Yeah, I mean
So
that,
we
and
are
it
all
worked for
influenced
me in
by that.
banking. Let me tell you, I was meteoric rise in my career because I could strategize what I needed to do next. I get my MBA, and then I do this and I do that, and then I'm going to be an EVP, and blah, blah, and I did it. But yeah, it's not.
Well, it works, and it still works for certain people who are so inclined. But
Nah,
as
yeah,
they say, the times have changed, and what
I
we
don't even know if it works anymore. But
so I think it may work for some people because
in
I think
some
there's certain people who are
professions,
oriented in that way, mentally. But I think that the way that times have changed uh, has actually, in some way, it's ironically enough, it's actually freeing those of us who never really fully adapted to that.
right,
Because if you think about the whole notion of diversity, people are intrinsically unique.
right. And this whole neurodiverse and neurotypical to me is ludicrous because we're so diverse. There's just the neurotypical has been able to take on what the culture just determines is optimal. It's
Yeah, and I
not
think
really anyway.
and I think the names are emerging so that we can actually take a look at them, because you have to
Right,
name something to really be able to understand what's shifting.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that gives us a pathway for each of us, this notion of beginning with with individual conversations, which really is our genius, as it were.
My God, duh. What, yeah. I mean, why I threw out what worked for me with the first iteration of Wealth Reimagined, I don't know.
Yes, you do. It's
Yeah,
because, you
I
know,
bought,
one looks for where are other people doing well and how can I,
yeah,
follow in their footsteps. I mean, it's pretty normal.
yeah. How can I reach more people?
Exactly.
But I don't, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So not to worry, as they say.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's where the relationship of these two cards bring us, that they bring us to recognizing that we're a guide of small caravan moving
Yeah.
moving the people with whom we had these conversations with through the desert
Mm-hmm.
and that will show us who wants to, as it were, belong to a circle of kindred spirits where they can experience interconnectedness at a whole nother level.
Yeah. Which is not sameness. It's so amazingly diverse and beautiful and unique.
And inclusive, because if you're inclusive, then belonging is kind of a natural consequence of the
Right.
inclusion.
Yeah, it's not forced. There aren't rules of, you can only belong if. Well,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's naturally inclusive. So that's basically the difference, at least in our culture, of the way belonging has worked in the past
Hmm.
versus interconnectedness. And I mean, this, just that conversation we had that gave rise to this idea to do this was mind blowing and expansive for me. Because it's like, okay, I naturally seek and recognize interconnectedness. Belongings where I get hung up, because I think it's supposed to be, and oftentimes there is a rule and a structure. You're supposed to be alike in many ways, and I'm never alike. And so it really helped me in terms of my natural, organic, secure attachments, my reciprocal relationships that are just no work at all versus, the relationships that I've had to work so hard at because there was no interconnectedness.
Well, there was, but it probably got sort of obscured,
Obscured by the sort of
because
social.
yeah, because it always exists, but it can really get obfuscated by, how we view it or see it or how people engage, you know.
Or how the culture tells us it's supposed to look.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. And that
How the
we've just,
group decides it's supposed to look.
yeah,
That the community decides, here are the rules. And
yeah. So we have really just walked into the vastness, or really ridden a camel into the vastness of the Sahara Desert.
yeah, I'm in your caravan here.
And that has allowed us to really just contemplate not only the expansiveness of belonging, but how the expansiveness of belonging is intrinsically related to the interconnectedness of all life on this planet and beyond.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah.
And, and after 9 years of wandering in the desert by myself, um, I'm coming full circle back to the way it organically worked for me in the first place.
Yeah. Well, 9 is the number of completion.
But now and now I can guide through another desert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. It's just very soothing.
Yeah. So, this comes to, sort of where are you now that we have this golden outlook?
Shoulders have dropped significantly. Um, I, I am deeply, beautifully amused that, that I'm coming right back to what organically I just discovered organically worked for me. It's just amusing to me that I that I am now honoring how I do things, like how my natural way to um, evolve things is this discovery and exploration, and then refining and then strategizing what I can from what I discover, but not strategizing ahead of time. So
Yeah.
I'm deeply, profoundly, joyfully amused that 9 years later, I realize I did it the way I did it the first time would be the way I would do it again, any iteration. And
Well,
why yeah.
I was going to say, they say that a journey, an epic journey in particular, which certainly you've been on, brings you home to yourself.
Yep. Right back to where, but spiraled much more wise.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that what you've experienced is true for us in whatever versions, for all of us, in whatever versions that we are, or whatever ways we are experiencing this, you know, in whatever versions of ourselves, are now present.
But yeah, the deeper difference that makes is that I already know how to do this. I've already done it. And I just got stuck on the story of the dissemination had to be like throngs, millions, thousands of people. And it doesn't. And it may end up there, but it won't be because I planned it that way.
Right. It'll be naturally and organically an evolution.
So interesting. What next steps are you inspired to take now? Well, I've been fed my next steps because I told you I have had three past clients reach out to me and say, "Could you take me through your, exquisite enough deep dive in design again? I think I need it now." One is retiring, one is reimagining her business, and, the other one is just totally shut down with what's happening and feels lost and thought, I found such direction through that, my own direction through that. So, I mean, I've kind of been shown like, go back to what you used to do. You used to just give people the, kind of here's the general design, here's the general mapping. And if you want me to, and now if you want to join a caravan or you want to work with me one-on-one, I can help you through it. And I'm so much better at it now. It's interesting. I've already been shown what the next step is. I just felt
Yeah.
like I was regressing, but I would do it because, well, I'm getting bored not doing anything new. And even though this is old, maybe I can spice it up a little bit. And I love these people and blah, blah, blah. But maybe it is the way. I mean, duh, it's obviously a way to step back into it with fresh eyes.
Well, and I think what you're describing is so pivotal because, in my experience in working with these cards with clients, both individually and in groups, is what they ultimately reveal, ironically enough, even though they're all these sort of iconic and unfamiliar sometimes images of foreign places, or structures, is they ultimately provide us with access to what I call our inner knowing.
Mm.
And sometimes we've been standing in it and we didn't realize we were standing in it, like you're describing.
Just do what they're asking for and then see what comes of that. Like, how could I support you without doing the whole, you know, all the accounting for you and all the blah 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 and all the analysis every month and blah blah, how could I support you? Well, if we could just do a call or, so it may open up to those three might be the first that do a joint call,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
So for me, what this card is saying to, I think, both of us actually, is it is imperative as guides that we uh, allow ourselves to have a golden outlook.
Yeah.
because this sacred Buddha, this is one of the most sacred Buddhas in Nepal, this golden Buddha. And it was, we see two of the eyes, but it's a square at the top that looks out in all four directions.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an all-seeing Buddha. And it isn't that it's, you know, as you said, that we have to kind of somehow map out, you know, everything. It's simply that as we have these conversations, we have the natural capacity to look in the direction that the client is pointing.
Right.
And to, in many cases, to offer them access to another view, another direction.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at the image. I was answering the questions. But
Yes,
yeah, I would, and now that you mention it, I'm like, yes, I feel like I have a golden outlook all of a sudden.
yes, yes,
Yeah, I feel very empowered to
yes,
recognize I've already been given the breadcrumbs.
yes,
And I was going to do them. I did make a proposal. I just already had told a limiting story about it.
yes, yes. And that's the key piece, is that we need to make sure that our stories are providing us, as well as the folks we work with golden outlooks that
Right.
empower them.
Like this could show me the way forward, not just help them. I mean, it's not just about them, it's about the
Exactly.
work.
Yeah,
It's
it's
about me and the work.
because it's all interconnected now, you see.
Right.
I mean, that vibration is really up in the feel, as you know, is one of the ways you could describe it. It is
Yeah, and
present.
not only am I evolved since I've worked with them, they are. They've evolved.
Yes,
We've all evolved. So it's going to be new and fresh, and I have to let go of that story that I'm just going backwards and repeating the same old thing.
exactly. And
I'm
sometimes we have to actually retrace certain ground with
Mhm.
clients because there's some unfinished business there,
Yep,
you know, and one needs to be generous in doing that.
exactly.
Because if we're generous with them, we can be generous with ourselves, because heavenly knows we've been over old ground before ourselves.
Yeah, and I wasn't who I am today, especially with some of them, it was a long time, it was quite a while ago.
Yeah,
And they should be able to benefit from my evolution,
exactly.
and I will see something new in
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah, precisely.
I mean, I adore them. I just had this story. I really want to work with people who care about their ecstatic enough, and if they start making more and more, they want to help the collective. They want to move the needle some way. They want to leave the world a better place. Those are the people I want to work with, rather than I just want another yacht, and I want another house, and I want another. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's not what jazzes me
Right.
around having more money. Um, so, so I did have some assumption, but yes, I get it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So, what would you say are the benefits of experiencing a wisdom circle conversation?
Oh, I mean, your insights just completely expanded some of mine, and completely reframed other sort of limited perspectives I had based on my experiences. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere near this just, looking at the images myself, even, because as soon as I picked Monumental Adventure, I was just bombarding you with emails with all my insights. It was like, "Bah, bah, 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 bah." Um, but it was so important to have your perspective because I was off on some of them. I was limited. I was limiting what it could mean because of my life experiences with belonging or not belonging more. So yeah, I think it's priceless, to have your perspective. I mean, that's where you're a guide.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I love to do this. So, and the cards make it really easy.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, you never have to, you never have to question the money you spent on traveling. Not that you do, but
Yeah, really. So, any other unexpected outcomes? I know you've talked about many of
Yeah,
them
coming
already.
right back to what I was naturally, organically good at in terms of marketing. Yeah, that was unexpected. I did not expect that. And it's very welcome. Um, I got a lot of what I, how I expanded or reframed the belonging was really useful to me.
Mm,
Very expansive. And, I think I was in interconnectedness is good and belonging is unevolved and bad. There was a little judgment going on, and that's no, they work seamlessly together. And there's not anything wrong or better than, it's just different. It's just a little bit different. So I think I started to see that I had a bias against belonging and a bias for interconnectedness, which is just not helpful.
mm, yeah. Well, if someone's wondering whether or not they one of these private wisdom conversations could help them with a specific question or challenge, what would you say to them?
It's just saved me another 9 years of just trying to, and I can't put a dollar figure on that, but I can put an emotional and mental and spiritual angsting cost of spending another 9 years trying to take what I'm assuming I have to do and make it palatable to me. And of course, I'm at a point in my life where I will not do anything I don't really want to do. So I would be here in 9 years from now again. So yeah, I think that especially if it's something that is you just know, we just know when we're stuck and we're sort of spinning around and we're missing something because it's not working and we can't figure out what we're missing and it's just not working. It's not getting us there. We're not enlivened. We're not juiced. We're not inspired. We're not, we're taking action only because we think we should be, for God's sakes. It's been 9 years. I better try this and I better try that. Just do it because, yeah, I mean, I just got permission to do what I love to do, to do outreach and marketing in a way that is so natural to me. I not only can do it in my sleep, but it's joyful.
Mm,
Whether the client ends up being a client or not, it's a great conversation. I'm in service, I'm disseminating. Whether I sign her up as a client or not, I have disseminated my work because I say, yeah, you're not ready for this, but do this, and then, come back.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just please, do it. And it's fun because it takes you out of the cognitive dissonance you're stuck in, or the story you're stuck in, or um, the unpleasantness that you're creating for yourself. And you're going on a trip and you're looking at images, and it's just it's another way to free you up to perceive and understand that your own thinking is not going to get you there because it hasn't gotten you there yet, right? Yeah, we get stuck in our own thinking, in our own assumptions and our own stories. And there's something about images that just, especially images of other cultures, it breaks through that rut.
Well, thank you for sharing that,
Yeah,
because
and I'm not being paid. Although I'll send you my Venmo. No, I am not being paid. This is true. I mean, it just really, I'm I'm very grateful. I didn't expect that. I don't know what I expected. I knew it would be a great conversation, but I wasn't expecting to literally be uh liberated from this 9 year spinning.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I can take a certain amount of credit, but I really have to give the cards their due because this is what they do in ways that never cease to astound me, to tell you the truth. I
Mm,
mean, they just, um, they carry their own energy,
yeah.
very much from these images and the places where I took these photos, and they just are consistently incisive and gently take people to exactly what they need.
And I can attest to how your guides worked you to the bone. These cards, and how you would just, go to bed and have to get up and clarify. You would get insights while, even though, and I think you assumed, well, I've been doing, leadership coaching for how many years and I've been traveling for how many years, this should be a piece of cake. And it wasn't,
No,
because putting the epic leadership insights and essence together with the travel wisdom was a whole journey for you. And it was hard. It was a hard journey. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
yeah,
So I know that there's wisdom in these cards that are from all the higher beings that work with you. Because they
absolutely.
woke you up in the middle of the night and had you rewriting and rewriting, and then you'd have a whole new insight that was like, oh my God, yes, that's it.
This is
So
true. This is
yeah.
true.
So yeah, you were definitely you were you were one of the travelers on the camel when creating these cards.
Absolutely.
And you had an unseen crew of guides.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you were being taken through the desert of creating a card deck. That is phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
definitely phenomenal.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And what you say is the absolute gospel because
It was an epic journey.
it was truly an epic journey. And I think that's why now the cards do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, but you did all the heavy lifting to get them all, what was it? I remember saying, well, how do you come up with the epic journey essences with the travel wisdom? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know. It just, they wake me up in the middle of the night. Oh God. So yeah, and now you're right. Now they can do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you
So
can add your guidance now.
right, yes, because they literally took me through all 54 transformations with every single card.
Yeah, you did. And now, and the more you work with other people, you're getting, again, it's a wisdom well, you're getting more and more insight into the cards.
Yeah,
But boy, to have them, to match up those essences and to describe them, with the travel wisdom, that was a journey.
yeah, it was. It truly was. And it was epic. There's no doubt about it. And
Yeah,
so
you were suffering at times.
I was. Yeah, no, I was. Although now, with a smile on my face, I can
Yes.
actually extend an invitation to those of you who have the good fortune to see this conversation between Anya and I, and invite you really to contact me and have an initial sort of conversation about you experiencing a private wisdom circle
Absolutely. And
conversation.
and grace is the perfect word, because this was full of grace. It was
Mm,
not painful. It was not, you went through all the struggle of creating them, but they are now full of grace. These
yeah,
cards, you and the cards are full of grace. It's such a pleasure.
thank you. Thank
And it
you.
is from confusion to clarity, from chaos to context, and from control to creativity. That's exactly what happened.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
So
So
now
I
I
think,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, so now I can just relax into creativity, which is what I've been waiting for so long. But when I don't have any clarity, I can't have any interest. And I can't generate, the creative urges and the creative energy that I have unlimited amounts of when I have interest and clarity. So,
Yeah, yeah. So please feel welcome. You see my email contact here, to shoot me an email with invitation interest, maybe in the subject line. And we can have at least a brief conversation about how you experiencing a private wisdom circle conversation could work for you.
oh yeah, please do. I couldn't encourage you more.
Or if you want to start small, you can simply buy the deck, which is in digital format, and it's on an app called Deckable, a free app called Deckable, and you can purchase the deck there and have it on your phone or your other device and draw cards whenever you need them. The beauty of having it on the app is that it allows you to save the cards. You can journal about the cards. You can even share images of the cards that you select. Um,
Can you
so
can you print them out?
from the deck, well, you can actually send the card. You can share them and send it like to your email, and then you could print it out.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I'm
Yeah,
so tactile. Yeah.
right, right. Yeah. So, so that's what this link is here at the bottom. This tiny URL is a link right to the where the decks reside on Deckable, and you just look for the Epic Leadership Journeys Transformational Travel Wisdom card deck, because you too can experience insights, clarity, and inspired next steps. Or if you want to start even smaller, there's a place where you can just pick up some merchandise so that you can have an image that, because these images embody, as you saw here in our conversation, they embody energy. So you can, have a tote bag or t-shirt or sweatshirt or mug with one of the images that speaks to you and begin to experience what the deck images have to offer in that way.
And they do embody the energy, and there's a way to receive it even without, intellectually grasping it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, as always, we will thank the indigenous ancestors because as they remind us, they were always here. They've been on this earth for 65,000 years, and specifically 65,000 years in Australia. So that's before they walked over from Africa.
Yeah.
And we also want to thank the ancestors who come from beyond time because they remind us that they are always here.
Always have been, always will be. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And we can access them whenever we need assistance. So there's an image of what the cover of the deck looks like. Excuse me.
Beautiful.
Yes. So thank you, Anya.
Thank you, Sylvia. What a ticket to freedom.